Dig.
And I'm Hannah Hampton, and you're listening to HR After Hours.
Humada, testicles.
You're funny.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hello and welcome to HR After Hours podcast, the only HR podcast to be escorted forcibly out of a Raffi concert. I'm sorry, but when Hannah hears him break into Baby Beluga, the top comes off. Hannah Hampton, my sister from another mister. How
That's
the heck are you
hilarious.
today?
I'm great. And I love you okay. So I know I've said this to our listeners before, but I don't know what you're going to say before you say it. And I think that was one of my favorite reactions because you got a what out of me. So I was almost little John. What?
Yeah, I was worried about not getting it on the first take. And anytime we have to do a second take, it's not the same because then it doesn't blindside you. But I made my way through it. Let's jump in to an HR Dive article that I stumbled across this morning and sent over. It's a pretty light read. It was published February 13th of this year by Laurel Kalzer, and it's called Employees Seek Hope, Trust from Workplace Leaders, Gallup Finds. And so this is from a Gallup 2024 study. And, I recommend going and reading this article. I've got some great bullet points here to keep it short and sweet. So here's the big thing. The big statistic off this is that 34% of employees report being most influenced by a workplace leader. And that's just slightly less than those influenced by family members at 44%. So, there's a huge part of the workforce out there that really looks to their leadership as far as guidance. They want to have the right people in place, but here's what they're really looking for in their leaders. This is 4 traits of effective leaders. Number 1 is hope. The second one is trust, compassion, and then stability. Hope is the standing out as the most important at this time. And I could definitely see that, especially where we've talked about in the past, the days of working for one company, the majority of your career and retiring to get that gold watch, those days are over because people don't live to work. They want to work to live. All of a sudden, we finally started asking, as well, what's important to you? And actually listened instead of just looking at, well, how can we utilize that to get more out of them at work? It says employees look to senior leaders more for hope and inspiration compared to managers and colleagues. So there's a big desire to have someone leading your company or your department. They have your buy-in. You want to be able to buy into what they're selling because you want to believe that you're working for someone that you respect, someone that you trust, someone that you think is going to move the company in the direction that you feel is the right way to move. It's not about the stockholders anymore. It's about creating a good balance and having sustainable business and people practices like we talked about as well. What are your initial thoughts before we jump in?
Well, I will say, as long as you're working for a big company, it is gonna be about shareholders, and I feel like that's something that is unfortunate, but that is the world that we live in. However, you can have leaders who find a better balance in that, and I think that is a big part of it, where they are not making it 100% about shareholders. But, luckily, many of us, myself included, I don't work for a big company where we're pandering to our shareholders. So it feels good to have leaders are able to share that message of hope of the future of the company and inspire us and know that we're working towards good. So I do think it is something that employees want to see. I mean, you think about it like this, like if you feel like you're going to work and you're just contributing to the problem, that doesn't feel good. You don't want to feel like you are not contributing positively to the world and to society. And again, I feel like right now in the world of recruiting, it's difficult. There's a lot of people out there who are laid off looking for jobs. They'd be happy to take any job, but a lot of times people do have kind of a hard line, like I'm not going to work for a company that I feel like doesn't have people's best interests in mind. So I do think it's about spreading that message, feeling supported, and feeling really good about the work that you're doing. So I think that's huge, and people want to see that at work.
And everything you're saying It's really about the impact of leadership on an employee's well-being. The fact that with rising stress levels and people are, starting to get a little anxious about advancements in things like AI and just changes in work structure. Are we going to get to do the remote? Are we doing the hybrid? Are we back in the office? Employees just desire a sense of hope from their leaders. And then the big one, kind of like you said, it's about moral leadership. Employees are increasingly demanding moral leadership, which impacts trust, loyalty, and overall company performance. A report from the HOW Institute highlights that over 90% of employees believe moral leadership is more urgent than ever. So it is, you want to be a part of something that is moral, that has great ethics, something that, yes, we may be building this widget, but what are we doing to offset our carbon footprint or our impact on the environment? What charities is our company involved in? And how can I do something to be involved in driving pledges to those charities? So it's enabling the employee to feel like they're a part of something decent and good, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And then again, we still got to look on how does it impact the business? Well, effective leadership is actually risk management. Ineffective leadership poses significant risks, including poor decision making related to rewards, health, benefits, cybersecurity, and AR. And HR professionals and risk managers view ineffective leadership as major organizational risks. If the leadership is corrupt or immoral or solely looking at the return on the investment, at what price, right? We've talked about these quote unquote business conspiracies. Like, do companies have a fund put aside and they're willing to break certain laws to move the business forward and pay those penalties? Yes, unfortunately, that is a part of business today in some companies.
Well, and
So
I will, not to interrupt, but I will also bring up the point that, with the current administration, I feel like people are getting more and more comfortable just being like, yeah, I'm going to do this because of, I don't want to say like wrong reasons, but I think Meta's kind of in a little bit of a shitstorm right now because Zuckerberg came out and said we're gonna lay off our poor performers, and now I keep seeing stories on LinkedIn of folks who are like, yeah, I got laid off in Meta, but I was on leave. Like, how I didn't it wasn't performance related. My latest performance review didn't happen because I was on leave. So I feel like that it's not going to bode well on the long term when it comes to these employers that used to be employers of choice. I don't know about you. I would second guess or take a second thought about joining a company that came out and was just saying, we are only looking to just cut costs. When you see their stock prices, when you see how much money they're making, saying, well, we're going to cut heads because of this, because of that. And I feel like it's kind of a shitty place because, yeah, it shows you there is no loyalty. You could bust your ass at that company and still get laid off because these people want to buy rocket ships and go out into outer space instead of taking their money and investing in their people, doing good for the world. I think about all this money that's being spent on things that don't matter when we could be helping feed kids and helping house people and making more affordable housing. And I know I just went down like another rabbit hole, but I feel like all of that's important to people when they're deciding where they want to work and where they want to spend their time.
I couldn't agree with you more. Hit the rabbit holes all you want. Call me Alice. We've discussed this at different times. Some of the things that we've been made aware of and shared, that's the difference today versus 20 years ago, is those things are now important. 20 years ago, there were people, and I was probably one of them. You could tell me all those things about a company like Meta, and then all of a sudden Meta's hiring, and I would be like, well, fuck, that's just more of an opportunity for me to go work for a company that I can make some money. I would have thought, well, what about all those people they laid off in the past? What's their moral compass? So this is something that is gradually, finally becoming as important as it should have been a long time ago. I'm embarrassed that it wasn't more important to me 20 years ago. But this is where we
That's called
discuss.
learning, and that is okay. That's growth. You've learned. We're not perfect people ever, so don't be embarrassed. That's just called growth.
But here's what I'll say about it. It embarrasses me enough to make me want to speak a little louder and say, quit bitching about the kids and calling them whiny and weak, our younger workforce. So they're fucking trying to make things the way we should have made it 20, 25, 30 years ago. Call it a generational difference, but the current generational difference identified by this article is there's expectations from leaders, that they want the people that they're going to work for, the leaders for the companies they want to put time in with, to do the right thing. The impact of leadership quality on an overall organization's success, from employee retention to risk management, now could really depend on these things taking place. And so, what's the solution? Because we griped a bit. The solution is leadership development, and it's building effective leadership training programs and starting by identifying your existing gaps, defining the desired competencies, and involving senior leaders as change champions. So before there's a revolution and you get booted out of your own company, why don't you find out what gaps are there, which ones you're willing to fix now, what you can fix in a certain time frame, and which ones maybe you're not. Let's train the people that are going to lead the companies into hitting these molds and doing the right thing, actually, caring about the people, or at least caring about what's important to their team members and their people. So this is all very viable change. But if people don't keep speaking up, if they don't continue to do these types of polls and these deep dives and learn these things, and people have to read them and listen and understand them and discuss them like we are in a very short time frame, this is what it takes to make a difference. We don't have to riot in the streets if we can just create this kind of change. And it doesn't seem that difficult to me. And maybe I've become this ridiculous optimist, but I don't think that this is asking a lot.
I've said all of I guess, my feelings, my piece, so I don't want to kind of talk in circles.
There you go. I'm going to start recording our pre-podcast conversations, especially when I have feisty Hannah. Boy, people, let me tell you, you're missing out. When you've seen a worked up Hannah Hampton who's froggy and feeling a little combative, there's a force to be reckoned there. And Hannah, that's why we still do this podcast. And it's, once again, always a pleasure.